So, Joan, I'm going to hand over to you.
Do you want to start recording?
Yes, I'm just started recording now, thanks.
Okay. Okay, hi everybody. Thank you very much for coming along today. As Katrina said, my name is Joan Butler. I work on the internal verification and I work as a tutor coordinator. So over the years, we've processed a huge number of certs on QQI certs on what was originally Right On and now our new Learn with NALA website. We're hoping to get back to around 2,000 awards each round. We offer awards at level 2 and level 3. So because we're working with these volumes, we really need to know that the work that is coming to us from centres has been assessed by the tutors. So you guys in the centres are the first line of assessment. The platform is set up the platform is set up so that we can really only cater with a few redos. We need the work to be perfect when it comes in. So the purpose of this webinar is to ensure that all of you, all the tutors who are working in registered centres know what's required for the portfolio, that you have an understanding of the QQI standards, and also we've our round 34 coming up. So I just want to go through a few key points to make sure that everybody is aware of what's needed for this certification. So the submission deadline is November 19th, Friday, November 19th. So Katrina is just buzzing in there through the one of the portfolios. So we'll have a quick look at the listening and speaking.
And just to make people aware that on the platform, if there's ever any announcements to do with portfolio work or deadlines for awards, when you log into the platform as a tutor, we'll always put up an announcement. It'll be found under the My Courses section of the platform. So as Joan mentioned, our next deadline is coming up now in November, so this is what we call round 34, and it's Friday the 19th of November. So at that time you need to make sure that the learners have completed end tests and that portfolio work has been done and is to the standard. Thanks, Joan.
Great, okay. So next slide there, Trina. So one of the many advancements with our new website is that you as tutors have a huge amount of control over what the learners are doing, and you can see what stage they're at. So this greater degree of management is available to tutors when you're in a registered centre. So it's that's the benefit of working from a registered centre. You can see exactly what the learner is doing. So you can help a learner insofar as the ideal situation is the learner will be working along doing their portfolio work at the same time as they're doing their online work. And once all of their online work is complete, then you can concentrate on finishing off the portfolio and then sending it in to us. So the key thing for you guys is get the online work complete and then the portfolio, get that sent in to us. So we just hop on to the next slide. You guys also should have completed training online or face-to-face. So hopefully we get face-to-face in, training done shortly. And as Katrina mentioned, as a tutor centre, you should be available. You should be aware of the memorandum of understanding, and also you should see the. You should reference our guidelines to make sure that you're working in line with our suggested work flows.
And Joan, I'll just show people the MOU that I was talking about. It
Great.
is attached to the webinar today. You can also Google it. So if you Google NALA, or you can go to our publication section on nala.ie and you can download the MOU form. And then the other document that we're talking about was our quality assurance manual, which is also available in our publication section. And that's available for download, and we'll show some of the details of that a little bit later on.
Yeah, it's important that you have a look at these documents and that you are aware of them. Okay, so that's great to have a look at those. The next one then, they're online. And the other point I want to mention, and I'll come to it later again, and it's on, I think, page 122 of the
quality manual.
Of the Quantumania, thank you, Katrina, is reasonable accommodation. I'll come to that later on. I have a slide on that. So you guys as tutors, you know, you are the primary person engaged with the learners. You're involved in all the teaching and learning. You have all of their portfolios. You know, you've access to a lot of their work. In NALA, we only have access to the online and to the couple of pieces of work that they put up in their portfolio. So as a tutor, we need you to help the learner to create the account and to register for courses, to help them through the course and give them guidance, you know, so that they are getting the best value and that the teaching and learning, you know, is this site is only supporting that teaching and learning. We need you to monitor their progress and also the end tests for you to make sure they have got their end tests completed. Now, at the moment on the website, when a learner visits a page, a tick will appear. Now, that does not mean that the work is done. It just means that they have visited the page. So we really need you to keep an eye on that to make sure that they are 10 out of 10 or 2 out of 2 or whatever the results they need. So watch that end test. And obviously you'll be supporting the learners in preparing the work for the portfolio. And, you know, what we see in NALA is a single piece of work. You have a whole portfolio of work, no doubt, that the learner has. So make sure that the piece of work that comes into us in the submission has reached the standard. We really need it to be at the standard. So that's why we need you guys to ensure that the learners have the work done. From an admin perspective, it's difficult for us if we've got to send back a lot of work to be redone. Ideally, you know, the learner is getting a message from us saying, well done. That's what we want to send them. So we don't want to send back redos. So we really need support from tutors in the centres to ensure that the work that is submitted is at the standard.
And Joan, I'll just come in on that as well, just to say for yourselves as tutors, the first 3 things that are here are all captured in the webinars that we regularly run called Getting Started on Learn with NALA. Again, if you go to nala.ie and look up our events page, you'll see one from yesterday and the recording is there. So there's one from the 6th of October. And if you go down to watch webinar, we'll have stepped through how a learner can create an account and register for courses and how you can help them through the course. The other piece about the end test that Joan was mentioning is when you log in as a tutor, you'll be able to go in and click on a course and have a look at course progress. So for example, if I log in with a tutor account here and click on a course like career preparation and course admin, then I can look at grades and I can see all the learners that are enrolled in that course. I can see overall their status for the course. I can see how they've got on in tasks in the initial assessment. This is all explained in the webinar from yesterday as well, if you want to check it out on nala.ie. And if I scroll all the way across to the very end here, we've put in a grade called End Test Passed. So I can see at a glance if the learner has passed the end test. Which means that they have answered all the questions successfully. If there's anything on this that you're confused about, we'll put up our emails at the end and you can feel free to contact me, cwhelan@nala.ie. So just, I suppose, to be aware that you will have this ability as a tutor. We'll have set you up with a tutor account where you can go in and have a look at people's grades and see how they got on. And you'll also be able to see their portfolio work if it's been done or not done, and also if it's been passed.
Thanks, Katrina. Yeah, I mean, it's really important for us. I suppose one of the great things about this new website is that we have this available for you as tutors. It gives a huge amount of control to you. You can watch what's happening, but it is really important to us that we don't get work until the end test is until they're successful in the end test, then submit the portfolio, and then we'll move on. So in addition to that, Katrina, you also have set up a really good help section, and that's available to tutors. I don't know
Yep,
if you want to
I can show
show
you
it
that.
there.
So
Yeah.
when you log in as a test tutor, or sorry, when you log in as a tutor, if you are on the home page and you click on help, then we're putting together a help course. So we're working through that at the moment and developing it. There's some tutor resources there. So if you're looking for resources around digital literacy or financial literacy, I'd really recommend to have a look through that document. There's lots of links from there to other documents as well, PDFs and so on that you can use. And then we have a tutor guide. And in that tutor guide, we have put all the information together that you need to have to hand as a tutor. And also listed in here, if I just go to page 13, it'll list all the courses, the number of tasks in the initial assessment and in the summative assessment, and will also show if there's portfolio work to be done within the course. Also that we think is a useful thing is there's a link back to the Qqi descriptor. So you can see exactly how we in NALA have tried to create our content and portfolio work for validation based on that Qqi descriptor. So this is another useful document that I'd recommend that you check out. So when you go to the help section, download the tutor guide and you'll be able to see, as I say, all the courses, and then if there's portfolio tasks. So for example, maths at level 3 has 3 portfolio tasks, and we'll go into a little bit more detail later on in this webinar on what's required.
Yeah, that's a really vital document for any tutor. It's the type of thing I'd have a hard copy and I'd be downloading it and keeping notes on it for myself as a tutor. It's a really good document. So as I don't have to tell you all as tutors that assessing is a key part of the teaching and the learning process. And you guys are the tutors and you decide when the learners are ready to engage in the pre-assessment activities. You can identify when they're assessment ready and when is the right time for them to complete the assessment. It's not about getting one piece of work and saying, phew, the learner is over the line. This is about the learner being able to replicate this task at any point when they're asked to do it. So to help you kind of really understand what's behind the modules here, as Katrina mentioned, we have a link to the Qqi Module Descriptor for the awards you're working on. So do keep an eye on those as well, because it really pulls you back. What am I trying to make sure the learner knows? And it's not about just getting the one piece of this extra assessment in. It's about making sure the learner has reached that standard and is able to maintain that standard, that they know the work. Okay, so if we just get the next slide. So make sure that the learner is assessment ready, because for us to have to send back work on the platform, we have to send back redo to the learner, and then we'll be sending a note saying, you know, well done on your work so far, but you have a little bit more to do. And really, you know, we don't want to be sending that message back to the learner. We want to be sending well done to every learner, because you're in a better position sitting beside the learner to say, well, let's have another go at that, or let's do something, than we are. And then sending a message online is not the way we really want to be doing it. We want our messages to be positive. So there's no rush with getting these awards done. So the learning, you know, it's about having the skills and being able to do the tasks. So as I've said already, make sure that all the online work is done before the portfolio work is submitted. And you can do that by checking the end test that Katrina showed you. Okay. So you guys are the primary assessors for the learner's work. When I worked in centre tutoring, I kind of felt I was wearing two hats. I was wearing my tutoring hat and my assessing hat. So you're working as a tutor and then you've got to do the assessment. So you're in a different role. And I think we need to define that, and it'll help us in NALA if you do that. So you're a tutor and you're assessor, and then the work comes into NALA because you have assessed it to being at the standard. With COVID and people working remotely, we've had a lot of work having to go back to learners, and we don't have the resources internally in NALA to do that. But more importantly, I think kind of it's nicer for learners to get the message that they need to do more work from their tutor. Okay. So, as I said, we send messages across the platform. Ideally, we want them to be, well done, your work is passed. We don't like to send the redo messages. However, we will do that obviously if we have to. It has to go back. So just be so careful that the work is at the standard and that the learner gets a nice passed message, well done, from the platform.
I can just show where you as tutors would be able to see the kind of feedback that comes in to your learners that Joan was mentioning. So for example, when you log in with your tutor account, and if you go to a particular course, we'll say like Maths Level 3, and then you click on Course Admin and Class Progress, then you'll be able to see all the learners that are enrolled in your centre in that course. You'll be able to get a glance of, at a high level, what kind of grades they have. If you notice, as I'm moving my mouse just over the bars here, I'm getting a result for different questions. If there's a little orange one, then it means it's redo. And it could mean that they've got half the question right. Red would mean that they're got half or less right. So you can use this view as well as the grades view that I mentioned. And then you could click into a learner and you'd be able to see, if you click into grades, how they get on the different pieces of work as well.
Super,
So
thanks.
I can see grades there for the learner, so that should be checked in addition to the end test. Okay, and here's one where the learner has done the portfolio work. So it's been marked by a tutor in NALA as redo. And you would be able to see the feedback. This is the same view that the learner sees. So if I click on feedback, okay, we just have some sample feedback in there. It's normally a lot more descriptive than that, but it's just to give you an idea of that there is feedback that goes back to the learners, but that you will be able to see that feedback as well and be able to help the learner then address that.
Yeah, generally it's well done in your work. Hi, Joan. Well done in your work so far. You need to complete question 2. Now, sometimes we'll be able to go into specifics. Sometimes it might be just one question, but sometimes it's more. Or else your drawings need to be redone. Please talk to your tutor about this. So really, I prefer we don't have to send those, to be honest, as you can all appreciate. I just think from a learner perspective, it's more personal to come from the tutor they're working with rather than somebody in NALA. Okay. So general points about the portfolios. Now, basically, it's one shot. We're showing, as internal verifier, I see one piece of work. We don't have the luxury of a wonderful portfolio full of information. So both the internal verification and external authentication rely on one piece of work. So for that reason, it has to be pretty much perfect. We can allow a single mistake. So it should have correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation. If there's a question asked, it should be, we should have a properly constructed sentence in the answer, not a word. What is your favorite food? I don't want to see pizza. It's, my favorite foods are, or my favorite food is, whatever, but a properly constructed sentence. If a learner is asked to do something, to list something, well, then a list should be completed. And if the learner decides they want to do bullet points, they do bullet points for everyone. So it's about presenting work in a way that's suitable, which is part of the QQI module descriptor. It's work suitable for the audience. So if you're asked for bullet points and lists, do bullet points or do lists. If they're asked for examples, again, at least 2. Examples is plural. ideally put in 3 examples. But if you're asked, it's not for an example of one thing, it's you're asked for examples, please give in examples. I've talked about the bullets there. And again, we need to see consistency in how the work is presented. And this is again around, you have a portfolio. If your external authenticator is coming in, you can produce a portfolio of work. So you're going to have the work showing it and multiple examples. We only have one. So again, we need to see this consistency, that the work is well presented, that the learner understands that it's an assessment and that it's going through for certification. Always use a capital I for yourself. Now, I just can't, we still are sending people back work when they're using a small I. So please, please watch out for that. And generally, single words are not acceptable. We need sentences. And make sure that all the online work is complete. Again, Katrina and myself have given you a few ways to know how to do that through the end test, but make sure that all that end test is done. So like I say, this is the learner's one shot at showcasing their work, and we don't have the luxury of the portfolio. So make sure what comes into us is at the standard and, can be passed easily by us.
And just to say that we will be sending out these slides for those of you that have attended today, so you'll be able to see all these general points that Joan has made, which I think are really key points for helping the learners when they're doing their work. And also, because this is being recorded, we'll make this available on the NALA website afterwards as well, that you can play it back.
Great, yeah. Okay, so we pop down to the next one. Okay, so level 2, there's extra work for just 2 awards at level 2, the listening and speaking and the writing. So for the listening and speaking, we need the learner to call in and to have a conversation with one of our free phone operators. So it's very much a chat. What's your name? What's your address? We get them to confirm their PPS number. Did they like working on the website? It's not a big deal. It's more a chat. But basically, that was what has to happen. If you're working in a centre and you've got 5 people, we're quite happy for well, probably with COVID now, you won't be passing a phone around, but that you'd actually do all of your listening and speaking at a certain time. We'll assign somebody who'll be available to you to work with those 5 learners and get those 5 assessments done. So please don't be shy about asking us to do that. And also for the learners, it should be enjoyable. They should enjoy talking to our own phone operator, and then they also get the assessment. So just make sure you phone in.
The key thing that Joan has highlighted there on the slide as well is once assessment ready. So make sure that you've practiced having a conversation with the learner beforehand. Maybe there's a tutor in another class who can come in, that for a learner, particularly at level 2, that they're comfortable answering questions like, with a full sentence, that they are able to express an opinion of what they think of the website, so that they're really, really comfortable with that then before they go and make the phone call to NALA. That is going to be key in helping them and help us to help them to pass this assessment work.
Yeah, that's right, Katrina. I mean, it's a great role play opportunity. Even among learners themselves, they can do a role play. So, there's a lot of work that needs to be put into this because we have certain criteria, and the learner must be able to have a conversation, express opinions, but it is only, the bottom line, it is a chat on the phone. Now, the other thing is, if you have a learner who English is not their first language, again, preparation, for that must be carried out. And also, if a learner's English is poor, we find that the speaking and listening can be quite difficult for them. So while it's easier face to face, maybe don't put somebody forward until you know that they have no problem working on the phone and getting the work, passing the assessment. Okay.
And we should say that if you have learners who might have difficulty expressing themselves, like through maybe an impairment or something like that, we are very experienced and capable and willing to work with you and your learners as well. So there's no problem with you being in the room beside the learner, helping to prompt them, helping to act as a prompt to them and that as well. So there is a little bit more about reasonable accommodations that we'll go through later on, but just to be aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, the speaking and listening is a great one. a great example there, Katrina. We recently had somebody and the learner cannot speak on the phone, but they can speak to their parents and to their carers because they have a high level of understanding between them. So in that case, we will be able to set up a reasonable accommodation where we will ask the learner the questions through their tutor, who will be able to, ask the question and understand what the learner is saying. But we know on the phone, a person who doesn't know the learner wouldn't be able to understand it. So we will set up a reasonable accommodation, but we will need the evidence for that from the center where the learner is to explain that this is the way they normally work. So, if you feel a learner isn't able for it for any reason, it's no harm to check with us. Is there any way we can make it work? Okay. Okay, dokie. So again, we're into the pre-assessments. Make sure it's all done. Make sure that they can engage in a meaningful way. And leaving a voicemail does not count as an assessment. Please realize that we need to talk to an individual. Okay. Again, the learning in full. I think you're tired hearing from that from me and from Katrina, but it is so important. A lot of people will try to give in assessments and the work hasn't been completed. So the learners will be asked their name, their address, their PPS number, a date of birth, what they think of the site. They'll be asked to spell a word from their address as well. So make sure that that's the level that the learner is working at. Okay. So the writing portfolio, a learner must complete 5 sentences on one topic. And send in the piece of writing. It must have correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation. The sentences can be very short and very simple. And also, please ensure that there's a correct use of capital letters.
And I should just say as well that if you're just wondering about all this portfolio work and where it is housed, when you log in with your tutor account, if you go to that waffle symbol and type in the name of a course like Writing Level 2, the portfolio will always be made available from the start, and you as tutors will be able to access it and see what the learners are able to see. So when I click on content and go to the lessons page, the portfolio will always be there at the very end. So you'll be able to click on that, have a look at what the final task is, if there's one or more tasks, and you can see the kind of instructions that we are asking the learners to do. So just to make sure that you're aware of where these rules are or where the requests are for portfolio work.
Yeah, and learners can work on the portfolio work from early on. That's why we put it there. We could have held it out and not released it until the end test, but I think it's better that the learner can work on it and they need not submit it to us until it's ready and they've done the work. So just the next slide there, Katrina, please. Okay, your writing should be uploaded, or you can still send it to Free Post Nala, but we would prefer that everything is uploaded. The centre tutors must assess the writing before it comes to us. And if you want, you can sign the tutor, you can do your own name and the date. We're quite happy with that as well. So there's an example of, I have a dog, his name is Lucky. Lucky is black and white. I walk every day with Lucky. I am happy when I am with my dog. So very short, simple sentences. That's all we need. We're not looking for anything. We're working at level 2. Level 2 is about sentences. Level 3 is more about paragraphs and developing, it's developed from level 2. So just a nice, neat piece of writing. We're not fussy about handwriting, but at the same time, we would encourage that students would present their best piece. And I'd always point tutors to our Better Handwriting for Adults book, fabulous publication and quite useful. I've seen learners whose handwriting has improved so much through working, actually working on the handwriting, and they have improved the skill. So the next piece of writing there, Katrina, you can see where it's basically a couple of sentences. It's not, I don't have my 5 sentences. Sometimes we can get, 5 totally random sentences that aren't even relating to each other. It could be, I like to go on holidays. I am doing a course. I sometimes go out running. I mean, we get, really random stuff. and it's not on a single topic. So you as tutors need to make sure the learners understand that it's 5 sentences on a single topic. And ideally they can do that on a lot of different topics, that it's not a once-off achievement. Okay, so watch for misplaced capital letters. S is a difficult letter for learners, and they often, it looks like a capital letter in the middle of a sentence. So again, these are things where I would be kind of looking at it and saying, well, that's how they do an S, so we can accept it. But if there's only one S, it looks like a capital, it'll have to be considered the mistake. So just watch out for that. The positioning of F's and P's and G's can be problematic. Again, keep an eye on it. Ensure the full stops are clear, and you know, it's not a handwriting assessment, and don't forget, Better Handwriting for Adults is available. There's a link there for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go to the publication section of nala.ie, you'll be able to see that handwriting book. And again, you'll get a copy of the slides afterwards today, so you'll have that link.
Perfect. Okay, so that's the level 2 portfolio. Has anyone any questions on that?
I'm going to have a look through, Joan, and see if any questions have appeared. And I'm just going to pop it out and see. Okay, there was one from Grania. So she's saying the majority of her students are still working remotely and independently. They're seeking guidance and support is required. At times, a student submits portfolio work before they've reviewed it. That's a really good point, Grania. Yeah.
And I mean, that's, we've worked with that, but it is disappointing to have to send a redo to the learner, you know, but I mean, we totally appreciate the tutors haven't seen it. And you know, we will work with that, no problem. Hopefully we'll be back to, you know, I know some people have started classes now already, so hopefully, you know, we're kind of covered on that side, and we'll be able to we'll be able to get back to face, you know. So at the moment we have awards also at level 3. So additional assessments are required for these. All of our level 3 work require additional assessments at the moment. We have career prep, communications, computer literacy, digital media, internet skills, maths, personal effectiveness, and personal and interpersonal skills. The assessments are a way for the learners to showcase their work. So it's vital that they're completed correctly, as with the level 2 work. And the validation, again, it allows for one error, but the bar is very high because we don't have the backup portfolio. So it's the one shot, make it as good as it can be for that learner. Encourage them to really be proud of the piece that they're putting into NALA, because that's the piece that will be seen by internal verification or external authentication. So, you know, it's nice to think that the learner is putting forward their very best piece of work. So you guys as tutors will be obviously working on the teaching and learning and the pre-assessments to ensure that they have achieved the learning that's required and that they are assessment ready. And again, you know, be very au fait with the Qqi module descriptor. Okay, so for career preparation, there are 2 additional tasks. The learner must download the form and then upload it, fill it in and upload it. So again, this is basically the bones of a CV for them. So, you know, it needs to be very well filled out. It needs to be in correct date order. You know, the way it's presented is important. If they're going to do bullets, that it's kind of continuous, you know, that bulleting format continues through the piece of work. And Katrina's pulling up one for us here now.
I'm going to try and find one. So again, you'll be able to see this if you log in with your tutor account. If you go to career preparation, level 3.
So while Katrina is getting that, I'll just tell you also we do a mock interview. And again, I can't emphasize how much you need to prepare with the learner, and that they can do the role plays like listening and speaking. But it is a mock interview for a specific job. Okay, so Katrina is pulling this up here.
Okay, so a lot of the portfolio work that we look for on the platform are forms that have to be downloaded and filled out. So for example, this one, as Joan mentioned, the first task is basically a CV, but it's important that the learner fills out this CV in this form exactly as it's presented. Now, they may have this information somewhere else, you know, maybe it's other work that they've done with you in a centre, and then they can copy and paste it in. But please do note that we do look for writing full and appropriate sentences, using correct punctuation, capitalization, and spelling. And again, like Joan was mentioning, at the end of the course, this will be a document then that the learner will have, that they can have in their own portfolio of work at the end of the year for all their coursework. So it is something to be proud of. But it's going to ask for that typical type of CV information like achievements and skills, hobbies and interests, and references.
Yeah, and just go back there. If you can go back very quickly to that, Katrina, just the, in the job section, if the learner is filling it out, you know, sometimes we have got people and they've, the jobs are randomly put in. So it might be one job and then something they did a year before and something they did 2 years later. So if you're doing that, actually explain, and it's part of the learning that the learner knows that, say, the qualifications, go to qualifications there, Katrina, for a sec. Thanks. The qualifications. So most recent at the top, go to the trouble of finding out who the awarding body is and the year it was awarded. Get that in. And again, if ideally it's most recent at the top and then you go back down. But if the learner for some reason wants to do the one they did first, that's fine, as long as they will be consistent about it and they understand what they're doing. So just be careful of those forms, and they're great. They're the basis of the CV. And that's what the interviewer, for the mock interview, that's what they will be working from, their CV. And also, the mock interview there, you can see that there are a number of different jobs people can apply for: bar person, beauty therapist, care assistant, cashier, retail outlet, child assistant, foreperson on a building site, forklift operator, receptionist, lorry driver, operator in a manufacturing facility, sales assistant, and waitress. So, we had a case just there the other day where somebody was doing an interview for a bar person, and they actually had never been in a bar themselves. So you need to make sure that there is an understanding about it. We had another person was doing an interview for a care assistant in a care assistant in a home for adults, and she actually thought that the interviewer worked in one because the questions, she said, were so good. So we've put a lot of effort on our side into getting the best learning experience and assessment experience for the person. So, as tutors, you can work on your side to get the best for this as well.
Joan, can I ask a question that
Yeah.
often comes in? If there's a role that people are interested in, it could be working with animals in a garden centre, something like that. If there's a job that's not listed there, can they request that when they're going forward for the interview, when they're arranging the interview?
Yeah. Now, again, if we had, we could do 50 or 60 interviews, Katrina. So if we had 50 or 60 different requests, it would make it very difficult for Germaine. But if there is a learner who has had experience in a certain job and they really want to show off that, yes, we'll do our very best. What I'd say is ask us, and perhaps we'll say no, but ideally we do like to say yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks, Joan.
Not at all. So that's the career preparation. And please don't ask for you've got to request the interview, but don't ask for it until you have the task one uploaded and ready. Okay. So the tutors can call, and again, like the listening and speaking, if you as a tutor decide you've 6 or 7 learners, you can actually talk to us and we will arrange to get them all done at, on a certain day or over 3 days or whatever way. We try to accommodate you as best we can. So at the moment, Germaine does all of our interviews and she's only too happy to talk to tutors if necessary. But I think the information we're giving you here, it shouldn't actually be necessary. So we'll just fly through that, Katrina. We've done that one. Okay, so what creates a bad impression at the interview? When Germaine picks up the phone, she wants to hear the person smiling at the other side. So as the learner is on the phone, if they smile, we can hear that smile nearly. So poor personal manner. And, when we started doing this all those years ago, people kind of laughed at the idea of a mock interview over the phone. It's amazing how it's become such a useful exercise now. So the learner must understand that their manner comes across the phone, even though there's no, visual cues. You can get a negative attitude, somebody being evasive, not kind of using excuses, not answering the question. You pick up on a lack of interest or enthusiasm. If there's a lack of preparation, it is so obvious. A poor knowledge of the role, failure to give concrete examples of skills, and maybe if they're asked a question, they might have an overemphasis on the money or the rewards or the lack of a career plan. Now, what I would say is, if somebody isn't able for this, please don't put them forward for it, because it puts us all in an awkward position. It makes the interview difficult for Jermaine, and she has got then to say to the learner, well, now you'll have to do that again for me. And really, that's what we want to avoid all the time. We want the learners to be at the level. And if you have a learner who you're not sure about or you need to talk, please phone us in advance and we'll have a chat with you about how best we can accommodate the learner. Okay?
And I was just going to add, Joan, that I suppose similar to the listening and speaking at level 2, really make sure that this has been practiced with a learner beforehand. Ideally, of course, with yourselves, maybe another tutor comes in from another classroom, so that, the learner's getting a chance to express themselves, to answer questions, and for them to ask questions as well in a real interview type scenario with a handful of people, ideally before then they've approached NALA as well. So then that will lead to success on the day with our NALA tutor.
Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough, Katrina. You're right. It's just, and it's about the learner getting the best out of it and we all being effective and efficient in our workflows. So, as Katrina was saying there, the telephone interviews, prepare thoroughly as if it's a real interview. Select a comfortable, private, quiet place. Advise other people, especially at the moment with, COVID, if they're in their house, that there shouldn't be background noise. Give it the undivided attention. And especially as well, if you're as a tutor, if you're organizing a group of them, maybe there's an area that the learner can go to do this so that there's not noise in the background. They should also have the copy of their CV to hand in case they're asked any questions, because that's what you should do in the real world kind of thing, and have a pen and paper to hand as well. Okay? So, can't emphasize it enough. I think we've been clear between Katrina and myself. Prepare for the interviews. Prepare for usual interview questions and prepare for the interview. Do a lot of role play and also make sure that the learner is aware, about the answers. Are they better standing? Are they better sitting? They smile on the phone because that smile goes across the phone line, and to avoid as well that they actually don't answer in monosyllables or in monotones. So just, you're working on their phone skills. And as we said, if they don't have the capacity, please don't put them forward, but please talk to us about that. And I see a typo there. Okay, so then if we could move on to the maths is there's 3 tasks: the drawings, the measurement, and the survey. The drawings must be sent in to us. They can't be uploaded because unfortunately when we download them, it's not WYSIWYG and we don't get, or what you see is what you get. Basically, the measurements are distorted when we download them. So you need to get them all sent in to us. We need the original copy from the learner. So basically they've got to draw 3 pieces: a circle, a rectangle, and a house. And the information, Katrina will pull it up there. We'll show you where it is. But this is an example of something that came in. Yes, we got our scale. We needed to be written the scale. We need them to write down the measurement there. They've got the scale is 1 to 20. The measurement is 50 millimeters. But you can see here, that's not a circle. So you can see immediately. And in fact, it wasn't 55 millimeters, it was 55 millimeters. So we really need you guys to be sure that the maths is correct. Now, I know the other, drawing the circle is really difficult. It takes a lot of practice. The quality of the compasses we have in the geometry sets, they just aren't hectic. So the learners, it's a really quite a skill and it's quite intricate. So they must get it right. And we do allow a millimeter margin of error. So there, Katrina has pulled it up now, where you can see the 3 tasks: draw the house, rectangular shape, square windows, triangular roof, and the roof needs a pitch of 30 degrees. These must be all marked on the page. So then you move to the circle, which is to be 50 millimeters in diameter, representing a manhole of a meter. So now this is about scale. We need, you're the tutor, making sure the learner understands what scale is, and then you're evidencing it to us in the drawing of this circle. And again, the rectangle, we need it to be exact. We need it to be nicely labeled, so we know which is we need the learner to show us which is a 10 centimeters, which is a 4 centimeters. We need them to show that they're aware that it's a scaled drawing of a bigger pitch. But again, these are all the things you will have been doing in the class with them. So yeah, go on, Katrina.
Joan, I'm right in saying that if we got in something like in this case where the circle isn't correctly drawn, obviously if the size isn't right, if the angle in the house isn't represented, if there's, I think, is it half a millimeter that
A
you can allow of
millimeter.
a mistake?
Yeah,
A millimeter of a mistake, but that's it. So
that's
it's the
absolutely it.
yeah, it seems like it's very strict because it's level, and it is level 3. But
Yeah.
then, a lot of apprenticeship courses at level 5 and higher do require maths, and we do find that a lot of those course attendees come and do our level 3 maths on Learn with Nala. And obviously you don't want anybody going on to carpentry or other courses like that if they don't have the right level of maths. So it's really important that that foundation is set and set correctly.
Yeah, and also Katrina as well. It's around uh, the measurement, that it's precise. People understand 5 centimeters is 5 centimeters, not 5.1, and that they
Mm.
have an eye for it. So it's really, really important that these are correct and the learners understand it. And the other thing I'll say, if I have say if I get in 10 mats from one center and the house is exactly the same in each case, I won't be able to accept those, because to me then that looks as if the learners were told, here, draw this. Whereas if a learner is told to draw a house that's rectangular with square windows and with a 30-degree angle on the roof, all those drawings need to be different, because I don't want them drawing the same rectangular measurement. So, a rectangle, we have houses where the rectangle is kind of from top to bottom, if you know what I mean. And then you've got the triangle on the top and the windows are square. And then we've others where the rectangular is the length. So it's kind of long. And yeah, we could have a house. Yeah, you can see the house there. But if 10 houses come in and they're exactly the same and the squares are drawn in the same places and the angles are the same, you know, we can different angles. Some people can have the 30 degrees at a different point, and all we need to see is a 30-degree. So make sure that if they're working in a group, that it's clear that you've given them the assessment and the learners are filling it out to their own, as as it comes to them there and then, because we do identify if it's more, if the learner has been over supported.
And this is not just even for maths, but for
Mm-hmm.
writing as well. We've often
Yeah.
had in work where, the topic has obviously been why they return to education, and all the sentences that come in from all the learners in the centre are all the exact same. And obviously, being tutors, you want to support the learners. Maybe something was written up on a whiteboard and the learner copied it, but when we see that, then the first thing we're going to do is return to the centre and say, look,
Yeah.
this also has to reflect the individual and their own work as well. So just to be aware of that.
Yeah, and I mean, we did have a case, and I spoke to the tutor about it, and basically, as Katrina said, the tutor had written up 15 sentences, so they'd worked. It was a great session. The learners talked about, returning to learning. They wrote up the sentences, and the tutor left them up, and the learners then decided which ones they wanted, and they copied them down. So they weren't actually writing out the sentences; they were copying them from a whiteboard. So, be very careful and be very precise. And I surprised myself, actually, as the internal verifier, how much of these things I can pick up. We had another case where a learner sent in work a couple of times and the handwriting was different. Now, what I didn't know and what I wasn't told by the tutor was that, or by the learner actually had a scribe, and that's why the handwriting was different. So I had to go back and say, look, we're not happy with this, the handwriting is different. And there was a very reasonable explanation, and we then sorted out reasonable accommodation. So, don't be surprised if we get back to you, because everything has gone through very, very thoroughly, and we do pick up these types of things, and it's better that they don't occur. basically. So the maths, as I say, the drawing should be different. Use a compass. It's really tricky, so make sure there's lots of practice. Also, you don't have to use a compass. There are other ways of drawing a circle, so make sure you've kind of covered all those angles in the class. Make sure that the drawings are labeled correctly, and the learner is expected to know measurement, scale, and mathematical terms. And you, as the tutor, are assessing that they have that broader range of knowledge, and that the piece of work you're giving to us is, the piece of work that you're actually giving to us is a representation of their vast knowledge around scale, around measurement, and around, getting drawings onto paper and actually, understanding the mathematical concepts. So again, there's one of our samples for task 2, which is the measurement form. We're asked for the room they're in to work out the area of it, describe the journey they take to work or take to school or whatever, how they go, what the distance is, about what they drink. So if I get in, a number of those, and everybody is walking 3 kilometers to school every day, they'll be sent back to you, and we really want to avoid that. Also, metric, make sure we have metric. If somebody still is working in Imperial in feet and yards, and I know I still think in feet and yards, that's fine, but for the purposes of this, it must be metric, and it's a good learning point. So if somebody hasn't had the opportunity to learn the metric system, make this the opportunity. Again, the spelling mistakes, make sure that they don't use the American spelling, and the individuality of the learner to the answer to each learner is really important. Okay, so then our next one is the form filling. Again, same things, spelling, grammar, punctuation. So this is around a survey. They're asked a number of questions. And again, keep it, make it comprehensive. Don't be going for the minimum with these. Look for the learner to put in as much effort and to actually spend the time looking at what they're doing, and that they aren't just going to throw it out in 5 minutes, that they actually spend time thinking and taking care writing it up as well. Okay.
And noticing this again, like Joan was saying earlier, it's the use of full sentences, so and correct spelling, and so we want to really hone in on that.
Yeah. Okay, so then the personal effectiveness. So again, it's into download the form and ensure that the information is correct. And again, it's, make sure it's individual to each person, and spend time preparing this. This is kind of the core of a whole course, and this is one part. So it takes a lot of time, and you can build on it. So that's why we like the availability of the portfolio for the learner from day one, so they can be building on this over the different sessions, because you're not going to be covering long-term goals, short-term goals, and medium-term goals in one session. That might be over a different time frame, and it also helps you. It also works well with your teaching and learning, that we just try to fit around what you're doing with the learning. We don't try to impose anything. So when you're doing personal effectiveness with the learner, you'll be covering different questions at different times around the goals, and the work is there so that the learner can fill it up as they're doing sessions with you, and then they can have it ready for the submission. Okay. So again, the same thing, make sure all the end test is done. Tutors have to assess it, and we only allow one mistake. So it's the one shot, and it should be, as I say, that piece of work that the learner is really proud of. It's their best piece of work during the whole year. So reasonable, we have other, I'm not going to go into all of the other, we don't have time to do them all, but basically the system is the same with them. So the other important thing is reasonable accommodation, and we really want to make sure that learners get the best opportunity to get a certificate, and that there is no barrier. So once the learner has, in the handwriting, for instance, let me go back to that gentleman who had an upper body limitation and he couldn't do the maths. So in his case, we just got the reasonable accommodation, got it filled in, and the scribe, and as it happened, I actually did the scribing that day because the gentleman was from Dublin, so I actually went out and met him, and I did the work. So that was the scribe, that there was a scribe to do it. So we will accommodate any learner as best we can. but we need the help of the tutor, and we'll discuss it with you. The other thing, if we're doing a reasonable accommodation, what I tend to do is I'll have a chat with you about it, and then I'll actually go to our external authenticator and confirm with them that there won't be any glitches and that they are in agreement before we actually give the final yes, we go with that. Because I don't want to find that we've got to EA stage and the external authenticator is saying, I'm not happy with that reasonable accommodation, you're giving too much. So, we need to talk about every individual reasonable accommodation. You'll need to have a chat with me about it.
There's information on the reasonable accommodation on page 102 106 in the quality assurance manual that we've attached to this webinar today. So you'll be able to access that, and also in the back of that is the form, which is the reasonable accommodation application form that I'm just showing on screen there. So we can also give you that when we're sending out the slides as well, so that you have the individual document too.
Yeah. I mean, we've been doing them for quite a few years, but in the past couple of years we have done more of them. We could be doing 2 or 3 reasonable accommodations each round. So, has anyone any questions? I've been talking for ages. Thanks, Katrina.
I'm
You
going
gave
to
me a
have a
break
look
a few times.
through and see if there's any more questions coming up.
Great.
Feel free, as I say, to click on the hand symbol if you want to raise your hand, and we can have a look, see if there's any questions coming in that way. Okay, I don't see any coming in. As I say, feel free to type in the question as well if you wish.
Yeah, there's a lot of information, and I suppose if I just try to decant it down, it's make sure we're trying to work with the teaching and learning that you're doing. That's the main part of the learning. We're just working on a way to get the accreditation. So you make sure that the end test is done, that this work submitted to NALA is at the standard, and if we do that, it'll work smoothly for us all, because the main part of the learning is going on in the classes with you guys, and this is just a way of not having to sit down. I know when I was doing it on folders, you could have 100 folders for different learners, and you're checking through to make sure everything is there. It's so time consuming. Whereas now you can put the effort into the actual teaching and learning, and the certification follows with it in an easier way, in my opinion anyway.
So I'm just putting a poll up there about what level your learners are working at, if you want to answer that, just for us to be able to collect in a bit of information as well. So, feel free to type in your answer. Mostly what seems to be coming in at the moment is from QQI levels 1 to 4 that's available, or non-QQI. Feel free to type it into the question box. So what it mostly seems to be is QQI level 2. Okay, and also some QQI level 3. So that's great to know. As I say, at level 2, there's only 2 courses that have portfolio work, but at level 3, it's a lot more. So hopefully you'll find this webinar useful today to get you going with supporting your learners.
I
Okay,
think,
thanks
Katrina,
for
can I
that.
just jump in there when you're talking about level 2 to level 3? What I found a lot of is with learners working from home, they didn't have the support of the tutors, and they actually didn't understand the jump from level 2 to level 3. And that doesn't happen when they're in the centres with tutors, because I suppose you're talking to them and you're under, there's a whole kind of dialogue going on. It's one thing I really noticed, learners were quite disillusioned, and that's why we put in the preparing for level 3. So just to be aware of that.
Yeah, we have those courses. When I send out the link with the slides, I'll make sure that you can see the course on courses.nala.ie, the list of preparing for level 3 courses that you can sign up your learners for. And as tutors, you should have access to all of them. If you don't, for whatever reason in your account, you can let me know after this today, and I'll make sure that you can access them with your tutor account. So the next poll I've just put out there is about the rounds for QQI. We do have 2 deadlines at the moment. We felt that if we introduced a 3rd deadline, that maybe that would help, so that there would be different points in the year that learners could enter their work for us to verify it. So we're asking, would that be something that you might be interested in or find useful? And so what actually the answer that seems to be coming in is no. So that's good for us to know.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Thank you for that.
very good.
And then the last poll that we're just going to launch today is what do you feel that you need to know more about in relation to NALA's verification process? Or rather, do you feel you know enough about it? If you want to answer yes or no or maybe, and if there's things that you'd like to learn a little bit more about, feel free to type it into the question box once you're complete. Okay, so the answer that seems to be coming in is yes, that people feel that they do know more about NALA's verification process, which is great to hear.
That's super. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
I mean, the end
So
of the day, the real work is being done in the classrooms by you guys with the learners, and we're just trying to fit around it and give the learners the opportunity to work online and the learning experience. But the work, the real work, is being done by you. We're just coming in at the end to hopefully make the certification a little bit easier for everybody.
So just the last slide I've put up there is my contact details. So that's cwhelan at nala.ie and Jones is jbutler at nala.ie. As I say, the slides will be sent out afterwards. Our phone number is there as well. So you can contact us at any time if you have queries about the platform or about the verification process. We hope you found today useful. There'll be a short survey that'll take about a minute to do when this is complete, which would be great to get your feedback as well. And we hope that we will be talking to you again soon. Thank you very much and take
Yeah.
care.
Thank you. Bye bye.